Hey, how's it going? I want to do a quick review, just unfiltered, not planned or in any shape or form. Quick review on a book called Never Let Me Go by the author Kazuo Ishiguro. And I want to talk about this because I just read it and it was very good. I had just made a video where I was talking about my TBR, my to be read list of books for this month, and this was not on there. And as a matter of fact, I'm getting ahead of myself a little, but there's actually a number of books that I'm planning on reading that were not on that list, which is fine, but in due time. But I had to talk about this real quick because this was a wonderful read. I actually picked this up. If you've ever heard of Strand Bookstore in New York City, I picked this up there. A really amazing bookstore. I can't remember where it is. It's on Broadway. But there's tons of old paperbacks and stuff. But this was a new copy I picked up. I've been wanting to read Ishiguro for a while, and I just saw this and said, "Hey, I'll start with it." So I don't know if this is like the best one to start with him, though it was an incredibly accessible book. So I don't think that I think you could probably start anywhere with this author. So, anyways, this author is very popular. He's very well known, very a very lauded author, and this book is very popular. He's probably also best known for The Remains of the Day, which may be some may consider his magnum opus, but certainly this one as well. Both of which I believe are turned into films. Certainly this one. This is a very difficult book to talk about without spoiling, and it really is. I thought about, although I said it was an unfiltered review, but I did think a little about how would I talk about this without spoiling it, and the honest answer is it's almost impossible. And I haven't read too many books recently where it's very difficult to talk about the story without spoiling anything. And it's interesting because this is a very literary style book. It's light on plot. It's definitely a character study. It's a theme study. So not to say that this is postmodern in any way and that there's, an absence of plot or anything and there's no payoff. But it's not really focused on plot as most literary books are. They tend to be focused on character studies and, studies of themes. And essentially, this book is about, if you haven't heard of it, is about this woman named Kathy, or Kath, as she's referred to in the book. And she's basically just recollecting times. She's kind of narrating to you when she was a child at this boarding school in England. Ishiguro is an English author. He was born in Japan, but moved to England, I believe, when he was 5. So I believe most of his books, if not all, take place in England. And she has two friends at this boarding school named Tommy and Ruth. And she basically recounts her time growing up. And this book spans a very long time, a very wide period, from being at that school as young kids all the way through adulthood. And she recounts the things that happened there. I cannot talk about this book any more than that because it simply will ruin the book. And it's funny to say that about a book that is not necessarily very heavy on plot, but the way that the information is told to you in this book was the thing that caught me immediately. Ishiguro's prose is wonderful and very accessible. It's not a hard book to read, but he withholds information from you constantly. And I suspect, although I could be wrong, that this is something that he's known for. I felt like the way that would he would introduce things very slowly and would never explain them, and not explain them in a way where it's extraordinarily confusing, but he purposely would bring out a plot point and pay it no mind, like it was commonplace. Because if you think in the terms of this character, she's recounting her memories, her recollection of events that happened. So she would not explain these things to you in great detail because they were just things that were matter of fact to her. And I think matter of fact is the best way to explain some of the way that the events in this book are told to you, is just very matter of factly. And I love that about this book. I loved that it was just enough to keep you reading. It's not a particularly thrilling book in that sense that it warrants, like, oh my God, what's going to happen next? But it always leaves you wondering. And this book is very atmospheric and melancholic. I mean, this book it's a sad book. It is very sad. It deals with the idea of autonomy, the idea of memories and how our memories shape us, and the idea of, I guess you could say, a life wasted, or the idea of what could be, what could have been. And it was very moving, I have to say. It was very sad, and it's, if I could say one word about this book, I'm sorry that I'm not articulating this well, but it's tough to talk about, but I had to make this. It's a very understated book. It's not the kind of book that hits you over the head with anything, or that it, like I said, is very thrilling, that is, gets you going. It's very subtle. I suspect, like I said, that this is a theme running with Ishiguro, that he's very subtle in the way that he does his theming and everything. And I think it's very tasteful. It was very tastefully written. It was, like I said, a sad read. And the sadness in this book is apparent at times, but sometimes you just need to take a step back and think about the implications of what is being said and told to you, and then really kind of understand the sadness and in this book. And I think that's a really neat thing to do as an author, to trust your audience to parse through the text and see, really read through the lines sometimes, to see the deepness and the turmoil sometimes without hitting them over the head. So that was wonderful. I have only have one criticism of this book, which is completely contradictory to what I just said. But at times, it was slightly expository for a book that is very light on plot. This is more like, I don't want to say picaresque, but it's just a recollection of things that happened. The book is more episodic in nature, and it's certainly a book that is very, like I said, very understated. But there were moments in the book where I felt that it was too expository for my tastes. Like something was brought up and I thought, oh, that's cool, and then he explained it on the next page. So I don't know that, but doesn't take away from it. I would probably give this 4.5 stars. It was a really good book, and it's a very short book. It's 260 something pages. It's a very quick read, and I read this on the train, most of it on the train ride. I was like I said, in New York City, and it's a quick read, but it's just so emotionally gripping. I don't even know how to describe it. Literary fiction, certainly, but I'm not even sure. Like speculative fiction, perhaps. I'm kind of not. I'm not going. I'm talking in circles at this point. But if you've never read this and you like literary fiction, certainly give this a read. I think I've explained it's not very plot heavy and all that. And I gotta read. I'm gonna probably read Remains of the Day, or The Remains of the Day, I think. I've also heard of Clara and the Sun, and I've heard of is it called The Unconsoled? I believe those are the only books of his I've heard of. So I'll certainly read them. If you've read any of Ishiguro's books, let me know. This was a wonderful read. It was a surprise. Like I said, I've been wanting to read him, but it wasn't on my mind when I saw it. I picked it up, and it just really caught me, So yeah, that's that. What I'm reading right now. Oh, by the way, quick update. Although I'll do a bigger update in my end of the month video talking about all the books. I'll certainly talk about this again briefly. Stop reading Infinite Jest. I just can't get through it. I'm sorry for you folks that love it. I totally understand. It's an unbelievably well-written book. There are some incredibly deep, moving moments in it, and I've read Broom of the System and some of his other stuff, and Foster Wallace is a phenomenal writer, but I just couldn't do it. I read 400 so pages of it. There was not enough a plot there to keep me going. I don't always need plot, but there was like an absence of coherency to that book that just wasn't working with me. Like I said, amazing philosophical moments in that book, and some really funny, great moments. Especially, I did get to the eschaton section for you folks that know that book. I thought that was really cool, really funny, by the way. But I just don't see myself finishing that book. Maybe someday. Can't do it. I just actually read another book called The New York Trilogy by Paul Auster. Well-regarded author, but not maybe a household name. And I'm currently reading a book called Kafka on the Shore by, what's his name? Haruki Murakami. And never read any of him, always wanted to, and so far it's really good. So I'll be back with probably a Kafka on the Shore review. But nevertheless, I will be back at the end of the month to recap all the books I read. And if you want to know what books I'm curious about reading this month, my last video is a TBR for this month, and hopefully I get to some of them. Definitely, the one that I'm 100% going to work on this month is the LA Quartet by Mr. James Ellroy. A huge book. I don't think I'm going to finish it this month, but something I've been wanting to read for a long time. So I hope everybody's doing well. If you've read anything cool recently, let me know. I always love to hear what folks are reading. If you read this book, please let me know. I'd love to talk about it. It's a wonderful book. Very atmospheric, man. I love those kinds of books. And if I know some of you folks watch me for my movie stuff. If you've seen anything cool or picked up any 4K Blu-rays or anything, please let me know. I've kind of been I've been watching mostly. I don't watch really cable or anything like that or streaming. I've been watching DVDs and stuff. I've been watching It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia on DVD. Really funny show. Just a couple TV shows, really, movies here and there. That's basically it for now. I'll certainly be back. And everybody take care. Peace.